Out tonight. Super excited for this month's Hive. We're going to have a great discussion on ecosystem restorations with one of my favorite organizations, Marine Resources Council. And thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your night to learn about this restoration and hopefully brainstorm ways that we can replicate this here in our community. So my name is Kristen. I'm the Chief Branch Officer of Ideas for Us, and most of you guys are familiar with us, but we are a global environmental nonprofit, and we focus on developing ideas, action, and solutions to solve global problems with local solutions. And this looks like a lot of different ways, of course, education and bringing the community together to have these conversations and discuss these ideas, and most importantly, ask you guys, what do we do about it? What are these solutions? So the Hive is an essential component of this, but also different workshops and different ways that we can bring people together to talk about these challenges and come up with solutions. And then, of course, operating our different eco-enterprises like fleet farming and solar workforce training and other programs that we're expanding and growing, especially this upcoming year, which I'm really excited to share more with you guys about in the future. And then my favorite part, my specialty, is boots on the ground action combating climate change. So you see us out at these tree plantings, these pollinator gardens, these shoreline restoration events, and so much more. This is some of the most encouraging work that I'm so proud to be a part of because, really bringing people together around these solutions and giving people hope while actually making an impact in the community. And so these take a lot of different forms. You know us in our tree plantings, our shoreline restorations, waste audits and cleanups, and helping people learn how to be more sustainable in their individual lives. Urban agriculture is a big one that we focus on with different school gardens, home gardens, affordable housing gardens, and all sorts to empower people to grow their own food and be able to do this on their own. And then solar workforce trainings, which we're actually ramping up a bunch in 2023. So be on the lookout for that. We're really excited for that. And we do all of this in line with different sustainable development goals. And this is the United Nations recipe for a better world. And so we want to make sure that everything we're doing is extremely purposeful. And so we align every project and every workshop we do with one or more of these to make sure that we're really taking real steps and strides towards climate solutions. And we do this because we believe that this work should be free and available to all communities, not only here in Orlando, but also around the world. We have 13 branches internationally, ranging from Pakistan to Nepal to Kenya to Liberia, and everywhere in between. And we're ready to grow more, but we're super excited in investing in these people because they're replicating this model of global problems to local solutions, but it looks different because they have different problems, so they have different solutions. And it's really beautiful to see so much community desire and community collection around these ideas there. They get a lot of people at their tree planting events. I need to learn how to do a reforestation project like they do. They do 5,000 in a couple hours, and it's extremely impressive. So we do this so that these people can be able to do that in their communities and in our communities, and that environmental action is available to everyone. And so we would love to invite you to join this movement and be a part of this in every step of the way, the education and the action. So please follow us on social media. We'd love to have you attend our events. We have a lot of good ones coming up the rest of this month, and we'd love to have you join us, so please check those out. We also have a podcast on Anchor FM. So please tune into that to hear from different climate leaders around the world. So before I introduce our amazing speaker, I'm going to have you guys do a little icebreaker discussion at your tables. So just take a couple minutes to talk about any ecosystem restoration that you may have ever participated in and what that looked like, what kind have you done, and or if you've never done one, what would you like to do? So take a couple minutes and go ahead and discuss that at your tables. Alrighty, everybody. I hope you had some good stories to share. We did. We've seen a lot of dirty shorelines in our lifetimes that need restoring. So this leads me to introduce our amazing speaker tonight, Dr. Leesa Souto. She's an urban ecology researcher investigating the complex linkage between land-based human actions, water quality to address policy questions and guide strategic action. She leads the Marine Resources Council, we love you, whose main tenet is community engagement and bringing the Indian River Lagoon to health through science-based restoration, education, and advocacy. They hit all three, which is hard to do, and it takes a lot of work and certifications, government appreciation, and a lot of people. So you guys are truly doing the great work. So thank you so much for being here. That's literally, give her a round of applause.
Thanks, Kristen. All right. So I have to stay here? Yeah. I don't want to block myself. All right. Thank you all for inviting me. I'm really glad that I got to be the one. We had Katie, I think, lined up first, and then Ken, and then they're like, you get Leesa. So here I am, and I'm really pleased to be here. I did have this cloud following me all day. But how many of you have come to these every month? Or who's new? Who's never been to one before? Okay, so most of you come to these regularly. That's awesome. Does anybody know Penelope Canaan? Dr. Canaan? I traveled over earlier today so I could visit with her because she was my dissertation committee co-chair way back when I was working on my PhD at UCF because I actually got a combined interdisciplinary PhD in biology and environmental sociology. And I had my two chairs were the chair of the biology department, Ross Hinkle, and Penelope Canaan. And I had this interdisciplinary research that Gabrielle actually helped me with my dissertation where we were investigating perceptions and behaviors about changing the landscape in residential communities and what that would do to the chemistry of the soils and the water quality coming off of those lawns. So we installed 11 yards in a Sarasota community and then watched the social norm change, the response, and then we also worked in Wekiva and we did a whole bunch of really interesting research. But Penelope reminded me of where the roots of this organization came from, and with Chris and the students at UCF in her class deciding to move forward with this IDEAS and share it with the world. And I just think it's amazing that you all have done this work. It's phenomenal. So congratulations to you all. I'm going to talk. I was invited to. A lot of you are in these pictures, to talk about other opportunities that we could work together. So besides restoration, I'm going to brush on education and science as well, because we have a full plate of things that we do. So marine resource, so this is the situation that we're dealing with in the Indian River Lagoon, and what we're trying to do really is change the tides. We don't want them to look like this. This is an unaltered photo. This is what the Indian River Lagoon looked like in December of last year outside of Titusville. So we are a membership-supported charitable organization. We've been at this over 30 years. We started at FIT by a group of professors and community members. I was just reminded by the Melbourne Chamber that they were one of the institutions that started our organization. So it's not just, it wasn't just scientists. It was like the community realized that they needed to step up and value their estuary even 30 years ago. We do focus on science, education, and action, and you should join us, which you already have, so that's fantastic. We're small but powerful. We really have a small team. Most of these people are part-time. I've got 5 full-time staff. Everybody else is working part-time. These are the names of the people you probably were working alongside when you came to the Lagoon House. And this is where we operate. Our main headquarters is at the Ted Moorhead Lagoon House in Palm Bay. We have another property down in Sebastian, and we manage 42 acres on Jupiter Island. So we're really, our mission covers 9 counties and the entire, pretty much a third of Florida's East Coast. So we're huge, we're very, very overextended, and we're small but powerful, so that's what I always say. But this is where you all came, and thank you so much for your excellent, excellent work. So as far as science is concerned, we do, really our Lagoon Watch program was our keystone program. It's the very first program that we started. And we've been awarded many, many times. George Bush, the first one, gave us a presidential award for this program. And it was about engaging citizens in scientific pursuits. And some of those same people are still collecting data every single week off of their docks now. So it started in 1991, so here we are 30 years later, and we've got some of those same people now in their 80s and 90s out there still collecting samples every week. The data are all online, and we've got a more sophisticated tool now that people can interpret their data through. But we do share all of those data. We've added bacteria testing more recently because of the wastewater discharges that we were just talking about, Gabby, that are coming in pretty regularly, making sure our waters are also healthy for people to swim in. So we're partnering with Surfrider Foundation on that and Blue Water Task Force to expand their reach into the lagoon and up the tributaries. And also we're about to start herbicide testing. We've done a little PFAS testing with the Indian River Keeper. So we're expanding our lagoon watch capabilities and what we're sampling for as we're watching our lagoon, struggling, and we need to know what's in our water. That's what we keep saying. We need to know what's in our water. This is a piece that came out of our first assembly. MRC has gathered the community in assemblies for 20 times. We've done 20 assemblies. With the one that we did in 2014, shortly after I started there in 2013, we did an American Assembly. It's a process that was actually developed by Dwight D. Eisenhower when he was the president of Columbia University, that he took to the White House with him to reach consensus on really critical issues. So we took his platform, revised it for our purposes, and came up with a method to reach consensus among a very diverse group of stakeholders. So it's a strategic process. We came out with 114 priority actions in 2014 to address the changing conditions of the Indian River Lagoon. And the number 2 was we need a report card. We need to know how things are changing over time. And so it took us a couple years to figure out what data we had to report on, how we would do this grading, and so on. But we've done 5 now, and this is the latest one. And you can see we had to come up with some new grades, like F minus minus, because it was an F and it just keeps getting worse, so we just keep making more minuses. Did you have a question?
Yeah, have you all thought about maybe changing the colors from red all the way to blue, and then that way green wouldn't be the best, and then that way you could actually show, just because there are some studies where it says people learn more through colors, and so if they see that then they're thinking, oh, all of that's just F, and they don't realize well actually it's just F minus minus minus.
Make the Fs redder or worse, more. Yeah. We'll consider that for the next one. Thank you. We're kind of hoping it goes the other direction, though.
Right, yeah.
But the idea really was to try to show the change over time, because we knew this was going to take a long time, and we wanted our community to realize things are getting better or things are getting worse. What we found was, and I don't think I have it in here, that actually water quality has been improving, but the seagrasses are still declining. So something's going on. But we're working on that. I'm sorry?
I was playing off of what she said.
Yes.
Where's falling to black?
I'll go black.
Yeah, make it black if it's
F minus minus minus. Thank you. Science, we do right whale conservation program, so we're also trying to save the most endangered marine mammal on Earth, because we've got nothing else going on with the lagoon. But they come down to calve. A lot of people don't realize that. They come down to Florida and have their babies along the coast in the Atlantic about, between Jacksonville and Boca. So we have a couple hundred volunteers that live in condos on the ocean that just stare out at the sea all day. Can we just imagine that for a minute? Seriously. That will alert us when they see one, and then we run out and take pictures and identify it and see which one it is. There's only about 350 left, so we kind of know them all by name. So we do that. And then in our education programs, we do a lot of youth STEM stuff, trying to I have a real interest in keeping middle school girls engaged in science, technology, engineering, math. Part of that came from my personal experience, and also the dean. When I was in the College of Engineering at UCF, I worked in the College of Engineering. I studied in sociology and biology, so I got this really great education. But the dean there was a man named Marty Wanalista, and he had a goal when he started that he wanted 51% of his enrollment in engineering to be women before he left. and he got it. So I'm like, if he could get it, we can get it too. So we're really focusing on trying to get kids into STEM activities and doing hands-on things. This thing right here is a little sea perch. Have you heard of that? That they get to design, build, and then we use it to go out and take samples in the lagoon, or they can listen to fish sounds or grab water samples, but they have to design it for their payload. They have to design it for the auditory device and make it the shape so it can pull whatever it's got to pull. So we kind of created an engineering and a science team. So the scientists are like, this is what we wanted to do, and the engineers have to make it happen. So it's fun. We work with Brevard County to expand their Lagoon Loyal youth and adult education program. We do our Lunch and Learn seminars. We just did it yesterday. We had somebody, what is today? On Tuesday, was it yesterday, Tuesday? Yeah, okay. So we had a wonderful scientist who joined us from Maryland. She came down to visit, and she came and spoke at the Lagoon House on the cyanobacteria, the algae blooms that right now they're bioluminescing, so everybody loves them, but that that they're also poisonous and killing the seagrass. But very pretty. But she gave a great presentation. It's the first Tuesday of every month. They're also streamed, so if you can't come over to the Lagoon House and watch them in person, you can watch them on your own computers at home on Zoom. Did you have a question in the back? Or were you stretching? Yeah, that's me.
I got confused because I thought if I took my hand down, I thought I said somebody else was speaking there.
Yeah, no, yesterday we had a different speaker. This picture is me talking about the report card. See, she's got the report card. But anyway, yes, that's me. Thank you for noticing. It's the hair, isn't it? We do rain barrels. We used it as a tool to teach people about low-impact development in stormwater, and it's turned into a phenomenon where everybody needs at least 4 or 5 or 8 rain barrels at their house now, which is great. We do that, and then we coordinate this program. This is a program that started on the west coast of Florida to educate people about the fertilizer ordinances that we were passing. And those fertilizer ordinances all include the same 4 things, pretty much. One is that you cannot apply any nitrogen or fertilizer with nitrogen during the rainy season, which is usually June 1 to September 30, but different cities have different seasons now. The second is you cannot apply phosphorus at all because our state is a phosphorus-rich state and we mine it here and there's no reason to apply more. The third is if you're going to apply nitrogen, it has to be 50% slow release, almost like a slow-release vitamin. You have to have slow-release nitrogen in your lawn fertilizer. And then the fourth one is a setback from a water body, and the cities and counties all kind of do that differently. But those first 3 are pretty consistent. Some of the cities are now going longer with their seasonality. Like pretty much, I think Alachua, you can only fertilize in March. Like they're like, you cannot fertilize from April 1 to February 20, whatever day, 8. So this was a campaign that started, and that's too much. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. That's been my, when people are like, what's the one thing I can do? I'm like, disconnect your lawn from the chemicals that are killing it, So anyway, so that's what this campaign's about. And we do this in, ironically, Martin and Volusia, which are the 2 opposite ends of the lagoon. So we travel back and forth. We hold conferences and workshops, and these are 3 of my favorite people in the world. You probably don't recognize them. Virginia Barker is the head of natural resources in Brevard County. Ann Birch, who's the Southeast Director of Marine Science for the Nature Conservancy, and Dr. Dwayne DeFries, who's the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program Executive Director, all sitting around having Fritos together at one of our conferences. But it was a great event. So we do lots of that. We just did an LID conference. I think it's in here somewhere. But there's you guys. Yay! This is the amazing restoration project, and I was talking to you all. I know those of you who are involved with this were probably curious about how it's doing. So Ian had a huge impact on the lagoon, right? We got so much water in the lagoon, and there was a king tide, so everything was submerged. These guys right here, these big ones, you could just see the tops of them, and they were submerged pretty much until about 5 days ago. So Mara, the intern, went out and measured and found all of those mangroves that were planted inside the volcanoes survived except one. And it was one on the outside, and it fell over. So one, but everything else was alive. I'm like, you're kidding. It was submerged underwater for weeks, right? So just amazing work, you guys. Thank you so much. And these are the volcanoes right here. It is a little, why don't you guys, did you get to make them? Do you want to?
Your volcano making workshop, and it was basically like biodegradable, like burlap, sort of.
Jute.
Was it? And then we used like also biodegradable concrete to like slap it together in this like volcano form. So a lot of small crustaceans that we did habitat, but also kind of like a maker for the
Yep.
mangroves to those who want to like flow away.
Yeah, so they're cool. We do, these are the prisms that are the same, made out of the same material, and it's a pH balanced concrete. And then these are the volcanoes, and we also do pyramids, towers, and there's another shape. But different shapes for different situations. But these can be like, they're triangular, so you can build them up, right? You can put a triangle and then put a triangle upside down and put a triangle, and you can make them much taller. So they have a lot of functionality. I'm sorry?
Do you remove the prisms after the mangroves are established?
So he asked if we remove them. We don't. They'll stay in there. The mangrove, these will be like the anchors, and then they'll grow out of it. So they're meant to be left in and remain inert, and then hopefully crust. The oysters, barnacles, things will encrust to them and form a little mini reef.
Sometimes you want to have things that are solid for the microbes and the little crustaceans and that to attach to as well.
Yes,
They're a major part of the filtering, the crustaceans and that. So
exactly. Yes. Thank you, Fred. Did you have, yes?
Will they eventually biodegrade since they're made out of jute?
I think they will eventually, and I think that if the mangrove starts to grow sideways, it's going to bust through it. But it'll stay inert. We were just approached by a young lady, a high school student, who's there's a lot of muck in the bottom of the lagoon that they have to take out. They use these vacuums to take this muck out. The muck is really, it's organic, but it off gases nutrients back into the water column. So that it needs to get out of there. It's almost like a legacy load of pollution just sitting on the bottom. This young lady started using the muck to make concrete. And she's like, can you make concrete, volcanoes with the muckcrete? And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if we want to put the muck back in the lagoon, because I think eventually it's going to break down, Kim, did you have a question?
I just asked if the prisms were going to be removed, and I thought, is that Katie's shore break? Is that a different, are those prisms Katie's shore break?
These are used for, yes, a shore break.
Yes. I thought you might want to, I didn't know if you were referring to this question about that those prisms will actually stay there, they serve a purpose.
They do, yep. We have some down there, I don't think you can see it, where it's actually accreted about 10 feet of beach on the lee side of the prisms. I don't know that these are designed to do that. I don't think that's their intention, but they are going to accrete behind them. It'll accrete back here. This will become much sandier.
What is that trench? We just talked about that.
This right here,
The things that anchor the mangroves or the volcanoes with that trench.
these are the prisms. These are 2 rows of oyster prisms. They're full of oysters.
No, trench.
The trench. I don't know what the trench is.
Like a trench.
Are you saying this is the trench?
Yeah.
Okay, no, these are 2 rows of oyster prisms that are triangles, and they have probably stuff in between them. Did you guys plant mangroves between them? Probably.
You guys installed that, right?
Yeah.
I've also heard of like people using like the muck to like fertilize like regular growings, but like away from water again. So
Yeah. I think it could be used for fertilizer if you get the salt out of it. I don't know how plants don't like salt much, but yeah, it could. So it's very nutrient rich, very nitrogen in particular.
Wait, mangroves like salt, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, just making
Well, they can actually be submerged in salt water for weeks, it turns out. We just found out. Yeah. I don't know if they liked it, but they survived. But yeah, the mangroves thrive in salt. Any other questions on the project? Or does anybody else want to share your stories about the project?
Well, it was a fun day. Like, it was a good day out there with all the volunteers.
Oh, is it great? I was the pizza delivery person, so I know, I just heard from, but my team was very thrilled. What are the names of them? Manny. Manny was one. I think this is Manny. And I don't remember the other one. What was the other one?
Happy. Manny was so happy.
We were in charge of, Alex and I's job was to get the big mangroves out of the pots that were in the pool.
Yeah.
And it just like overcame the entire area, and they were just like rooting in a bunch of different pots, and it was just like super sedimented. So our task was to cut open the plastic things and put it in a wheelbarrow and get it down there. And it was quite a challenge, but it was worth it. It was worth it seeing Manny.
Manny. Yep. Manny's still there. Did we name every single one? So Manny actually came from a friend of mine's koi pond. She stuck Manny as a propagule into her koi pond to help take the nutrients out. And that's what and then, 10 years later, he's like wrapped around the koi pond and she's like, I got to do something with this plant. So she named Manny, actually. So anyway, restoration. So we do all of that stuff. And then what we're about to do is try to figure out what in the world's going on with seagrass. I mentioned that we're using the state's data to figure out water quality and how it's changing over time. We've got 30-something years worth of data, so we've got a line that goes up and down. And then we've got the state's seagrass data, and we're watching it, and it just goes up and down, 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 down. So now the difference in the two is dramatic. You can definitely see there's something else going on here besides water clarity. So we're holding the seagrass assembly. We've got 82 of the finest seagrass scientists in the area. We're really lucky that we've got 7 species of seagrass in the lagoon, which means seagrass scientists come to the lagoon to study it. So we've got a lot of information on seagrass in the lagoon. And now we just got to figure out how to get it back. We need to plant 117,000 acres. Any volunteers? Yay! So we got to figure out how to do it and how to do it right and how to make sure that we're learning from the experiences. So we know nobody's ever done it before. We've got maybe 1 or 2 shots at this. We got to figure out how to deal with the predation. We got to figure out how to deal with the water quality issues that are still happening. But get the habitat back. This is something that's not only forage food, it's not only the basic, bottom of the food chain, but it's habitat for the shrimp and the crabs and the baby fish and everything else. So we need to get it back on the bottom of the lagoon somehow. So we're gonna come together in our assembly style once again, reach consensus, and come forward with a guidance document on how to plant seagrass in the Indian River Lagoon. Can you make people do stuff? Maybe. I mean, it's not a bad idea. We got to figure out how to do it first, though, right? Yeah. I agree. Or in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's how it's going. There's a question.
Are you familiar with what they're doing over at Crystal River?
Yes.
Okay, I would have thought you would be, but they're being very successful there.
Yep. They've got their Vacillaria. So that's a freshwater species?
I was going to say,
Yeah, different. It's different, but the same. So we're trying to learn from those people how to do this, but it's not the same species, but they do have the same predation problem, or grazing, or whatever you want to call that. Was there a question in the back? Yes, sir.
You mentioned it's not easy or hard to force people to do things. Obviously, goal number 1 is while we're all here doing it on personal volition and conscience. But there's a big space for I don't call it social pressure, but we'll call it social movement, or this perceived pressure of social movement, because if something gains enough momentum and becomes the norm, then other people, there's a point where to do the good that's needed because they don't want to be the one person not doing the thing that, not following the social norms, the new
Right,
norms.
sure.
So, I don't.
That's how we're going to change the landscape.
Yeah. Education,
I'm like, yes.
education alone is like, just too many people are ignorant of this problem.
Yeah, but also like because they are benefiting directly from exploitation of resources that are lacking, even if, okay, so we don't have the way to do it yet, but then it would be like asking them to contribute like a percentage of what they're making off of it for research, for all, for actual scientists to be able to survive while they're doing these studies.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. Like impact fees, something like that.
In response to that,
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that brilliant idea. I love that. However, there is nothing left there now. So all of those pieces that came in and harvested and then Cottage Farm, they're gone.
They're long gone.
So
Long
there
gone.
isn't- and there isn't anything viable there now to, ask for a tax or, some
But there's
type of-
development, Kim. There's developers. we could hit them.
But also like there are areas where they were like shrimping, they were fishing. So if there's like a big fishery, like I mean, you could go to the grocery store and just grab one pack and like know that like they also crab, they also do this, they
Mhm.
also depend on like big mammals, like what are these called? Sorry, I'm speaking Spanish first, but like whales or like so like they are just because they're not fishing in that specific area doesn't mean that they're not having some type of business happening in Florida in general, or that they depend on the sea in general. So it like you can grab them by the balls from there, because it's like your business is the sea, so like you have to contribute back to it.
They should. Should. Should's my favorite word.
That ties with the conflict of government and private interest. That's almost like the governmental one.
Yeah, it would be. It would totally be. I think, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yeah, you said something about planting seagrass.
Yes.
Is that like planting something above water? You just move some like dirt aside and then you stick it in and then you cover it up. Like I've never.
What does it look like?
How is
I've never done it, but this is what I understand. So up at Merritt Island Airport, when they extended the runway, they were going to impact a bunch of seagrass beds. And a volunteer, Laura Lee Thompson, who's like a power volunteer, and fisher, she's also was a commercial fisher. She's part owner of Dixie Crossroads Restaurant in Titusville. If you've ever eaten their fabulous rock shrimp. But she took it upon herself to find a turfgrass farmer who would start farming the turfgrass that they were about to destroy when they extended the runway. She went and harvested that seagrass, gave it to the turfgrass, who's now Sea and Shoreline. So Sea and Shoreline used to be a turfgrass farm. And they started growing it out. They grew it out. She replanted it. They came up with this method to plant them in these little plugs. Each little plug has a little fertilizer in it, which kind of bugs me. But they do these plugs, and you have to use a snorkel, a mask, and they plug. It's 110,000 acres, though. We're going to need a machine.
seagrass plugs?
Yeah, seagrass plugs. Yep. So
Like do it with a shovel, like partially up the
Yeah.
water.
no, it's a machine, and they almost like push it into the sand. Dunk, 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 dunk. It's got a little weight in it. It's got this little ball of. It's got a weight. It's got nutrition in there. Oh, sorry. Wait, I got to get back in my screen here. So there's a method, and that's one of the things we have to figure out. How are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Does it make sense to spend a bunch of money planting seagrass when the water quality is going to not support it anyway? Where can we plant it? Do we focus on areas where we see improvements and test the methods and figure it out? Feedback loops, use the data to drive the management. Use the data to figure out how we're going to change the methods and move forward. So a lot of communication needs and coordination of that. And we started already with the survey. So with the assembly process, you start with a survey to identify issues and then decide which issues to really hammer on. So we started with the survey, and we've already got some really interesting conversations happening at this, for this assembly. I don't even know where to start. I guess, yes, ma'am. Hi.
So is that picture like actually in the
No. Yes. Yeah, this is probably a spring, right?
I can remember looking up there, and I got the number.
It looked like an aquarium.
It doesn't look like that.
No, it looks like that other picture. I guess I'll go this way. We'll come. So, yes, sir.
Lisa, where else in the world is there a comparable to the Indian River Lagoon that's a step or three above where we are that we're aiming to mentor?
To be, yeah, that's a great question, and we've been looking. We're looking for that. There's I'm not going to remember the name of it because it's a Spanish name. The Barcelona estuary, right outside of Barcelona, had a similar collapse. They flush way more. I mean, there really isn't another estuary that's so linear. I mean, we've got retention times, meaning how long the water stays in one place in the lagoon, of over a year. So the lagoon is almost lake-like in some areas. So you've got no flushing. Tampa Bay collapsed in the 80s, I want to say. So, and it came back, but it's a bay, so it's got a huge opening. You can get that flushing out. And so we don't really have the exact situation because of the linear nature of our system, and that we have a climate boundary moving north right through the middle of it, almost right through Brevard County is the difference in temperate and subtropic. So it's a really unique situation, and that part of the diversity of the system is because of that, because of the change in climate and the linear nature, the retention time, the amount of fresh versus salt water. So each group, and even with the grading and the report card, you see that the regulatory targets are all different. It's because some areas are super shallow, some areas are more deep, some areas flush. We've got inlets, we've got other influences and geologic features. A lot of upwelling that nobody's really even looking at. We started putting devices in the bottom of the tributaries to try to collect samples of how much polluted water is coming in from groundwater, coming from who knows how deep, and finding like crazy levels of nitrogen coming in. So we're like, where's that coming from? It could be 1,000 years old coming up. So there's a lot of moving parts that's hard to compare with other systems.
And you just said some of the water has been in the lagoon for a year.
Yep, that's a retention time. So like North Indian River Lagoon up by Titusville has a retention time of over 365 days. The Mosquito Lagoon South has a retention time of over 365 days. The Mosquito Lagoon, they still have seagrass, and we still have manatees. So somebody asked me, how are the manatees? They're not. But we have them in the Mosquito still, and the seagrasses are surviving. In Brevard, there's a manatee hater in every group. Any manatee haters here? Any manatee haters? None?
I saw a bunch of them like a long time ago. I went on a sailing trip. We were coming out to the Intercoastal for a long time, and there's like all these areas supposedly where you have to go slow because of manatees.
Yes.
And I guess there was like these I don't know, college kids or something just speeding down the Intercoastal waterway, like going really fast. And my friend said that it's a really big problem because it takes the manatees like a little while to hear the boat
To get out of the way.
go back down. Yeah, so they end up like scarred, like the boats just like
Yeah, that's
these permanent scars. on the
tragic. But in Brevard,
back. Like people just like drinking really loud from their boats, like going super fast.
there was, when we were passing the Manatee Protection Plan, this is a funny story, back in the 90s when I was at Brevard County, a contingency of people rose up and declared that the manatees were a non-native species that were brought to Brevard County by the Spanish to eat the seagrass. And I'm just like, think about that. Just think about that for a second. Just for a second. Think about it. Just for a second. Yeah. No. And they still believe it. They still believe it. Yeah, I know. I'm like, what? They're like ballast, right? In those sailing ships? We're gonna full of water with manatees in the bottom? Or drag them? That's what so I asked that to a lady. I was like, have you ever sailed? Oh, yeah, I'm a sailor. I'm like, really? So you think having your sailboat full of water and manatees in it would be a good idea going across the Atlantic? Well, no. I'm like, like, okay. Well, they pulled them. I'm like, oh, they dragged them across the Atlantic. Like, that's how much they want to believe it. That's how much they want to hate manatees. Still today. I hear those stories. I'm like, really?
I don't know. There's just a guy on YouTube that says it's true. So.
Yeah, I know. It's probably that guy. So anyway, yes, that's what we want the lagoon to look like, and that's what we're going to try to aspire to. So we're doing that in January. You know, you guys are getting me off track. Yeah, like, and my watch died. So what time? How much time do I have left? Is it 10 yet? Restoration. So here's our concrete creations. You can see them a little better. Everybody can make these. We've got youth prisoners making them right now. But here's like a whole bunch of them that we're sending off to FWC. There's Annie, the FWC person, and we're sent a whole bunch for them to do a big reef restoration project. What are they? They're young people under the age of 18 who have been arrested numerous times and have been given an alternative sentence. So they get to go to a special place and get experiences that hopefully will reduce their recidivism rates. I always have a hard time with that word. This is our mangrove nursery in Sebastian. So this is where we're doing our next uppotting on November 12th. This is really our big facility where we have thousands of mangroves, and we have about 10 acres, apparently, on the south prong of the Sebastian River, where we're also doing a lot of restoration work of wetlands. If anybody has an elephant we could borrow, we've got a really crazy elephant grass problem. It's like this 11-foot exotic weed growing all over our wetland that we don't want to put herbicide all over. So anyway, so yeah, that's our mangrove nursery. We have lots of volunteer opportunities. These young people over here are doing storm drain marking. Remember those? Yeah, with just a little DOS marker that says drains to whichever water body. They're easy. We put those out, 500 every year with the help of volunteers. Rhonda over here is doing exotic weed removal. One of our, I think this is the Lagoon House property. And the International Coastal Cleanup. So this is a great one you guys need to all get involved in. It's the third Saturday every year of September. Third Saturday of September. It's been going on for over 35 years now with the Ocean Conservancy. And we're partners with Keep Brevard Beautiful and the Ocean Conservancy, currently doing 8 sites just in Brevard. We're about to expand next year into Indian River County as well. But this year we had 750 volunteers. Kim, were you involved this year? Yeah, I know. She's usually there. You were there this year?
For all the sites that you had, it was amazing because you could literally pick which one you wanted to go to around.
Yeah, pretty much every causeway in Brevard County. And over 8,000 pounds of trash was recovered this year. So it's just an incredible volunteer experience, and everybody's so pleased, after the morning session. So it's a fun event, and I love that people come in teams, like business teams will come. The downtown business district from Melbourne always comes to my site, which is the Melbourne Causeway, and then they kind of compete, like, who got more garbage. It's cute. It's fun. This is tomorrow. No, Friday. What is today again? Today? Wednesday. Yeah. So this is our big awards banquet, and we're doing Legends of the Indian River Lagoon. So we're actually inducting people into like the Lagoon Hall of Fame, and we're going to have people like the IDEAS Native Americans are a legend that are being inducted. Paul Craigle, who was the first. Really the person who encouraged the president to establish the first wildlife refuge, which is Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge in the lagoon, the first of over 500 now national wildlife refuges. So he'll be honored along with about 11 other individuals and legendary things, and it's at the Hilton. So we've been doing these low-impact development conferences. Low-impact development is a way to build the land, to manage stormwater, to get it back into the ground. Because right now, pretty much when you build land, you come in and scrape everything off, you put your trees in a big pile, torch them, and then build the site up 4 feet, compact it to concrete, and then start putting your houses on. You gotta stick a pond in there somewhere because now everything's gotta drain into a lake that overflows full of contaminated fertilizers, dog waste, and chemicals, everything else. into a canal that goes into a receiving water. So I always tell people, wherever you live, even here in Orlando, and I can name the path from right here probably to Lake Okeechobee to the lagoon, you're connected. We're all connected. We've got more canals in the state than we have rivers, miles of rivers, So, I mean, like 10 times more canal miles than rivers. And it's just draining the state. So LID gets the water into the ground, it recharges the aquifer, it gets the plants using the water instead of just channeling it off into our receiving coastal communities. So we're really trying to, I did a lot of research on barriers to this. Why are we not implementing it? They're implementing it in Europe. They've had it in Europe forever. They're implementing it in the Northeast, everywhere else in the country, on the west coast of Florida. What in the world is preventing it from happening on the east coast of Florida? So trying to share, to slowly, come over all of those barriers. So the first one was really just trying to introduce to all of our elected officials. We had 37 mayors in the room for the first one to let them know this exists and everybody else is doing it and you guys should do it too. And then the second one was, we just did October 2021 of this year. We had 23 communities use an audit tool that the University of Florida, Dr. Evan Bean, you may know, developed to have them prioritize how to change their land development regulations to accommodate this. So it's really about using pervious materials, which are materials that you can get rainwater through. But you can't, so it's a lot of building codes, processes, zoning regulations, tree protection ordinances, things like that need to change to make this happen. So we did that. And then the next one is really addressing the development community head on with, here's the model of how to do it. These are the design coefficients, and this is how you're going to maintain these. So we can do away with those. They're too expensive. We can't possibly maintain that. That's ridiculous. There's no design coefficients that we've heard for forever. So we're just going to head on and then see what happens from there. So low impact development, this is a tool that Stormwater Management Academy has been working on for a long time at UCF, the University of Florida, really coming up with what those coefficients are. And we've got all the right people now and the right timing to get this done. Really key to changing the stormwater paradigm in the state is getting the state to pass its own stormwater rule. We've had the same rule in place now since the 1980s, and we tried to get it passed in 2010, and it got shot down. And so we're trying again, and they only have so much time, once they get started to get it done, and they're running out of time. So they're slowly, they're dragging their feet. So we're trying to collect up the information that they're missing to get it to them so that they will pass the rule. So that's all I got. So I'm happy to, did you have a? Yes. Are they proponents of it? No, well, I work with Cammie Dewey, and she's amazing, right? So she's yeah. So she's been very open-minded about it. Yeah, I can take, however much, my smartwatch died, so I'm just sitting here.
Okay.
I don't know what time it is.
Question, you mentioned muck and vacuuming some of the
Yes.
muck. I've heard pro and con on the muck. You're better off not disturbing it and leaving it there because there's so much of it, and how do you vacuum it up? But my question is, will the seagrass plugs even grow in the muck?
Yeah, I don't think it would.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. So a lot of, there's really not much. I mean, the muck, there's only about 10% of the lagoon bottom is covered in muck. It's really localized, and that it moves. It's almost like mayonnaise. So it'll migrate to a deep spot. And there are a lot of deep spots because we built channels and we built the spoil islands and things. So we've created these dredge sites in the lagoon. Then the muck goes there. So I'm like, just use those as kind of muck traps and go suck them out.
And is it better just to leave it alone?
No, I think it needs to come out. I think it's a legacy source of pollution, and they need to do it right. So the county, Brevard County, passed a sales tax, and it's enabled them to do some innovative designs for muck removal, because it used to be that it was only for navigational purposes, that they would demuck a channel so you can get your boat through. So they had to create different tools, different cutter heads, so to speak, so that they could almost vacuum flat surfaces, go under people's docks, like really get all the muck out, not just focus on channels. So they've been super innovative, not only in how they're getting it out, but then also, when you think about it, if this muck, it's a solid, sort of, very viscous solid, and it's about 80% water. So the muck is off-gassing ammonia. So the water around the muck is very rich in nitrogen, very rich. So they had to also spin the muck, get that water out, and get the nitrogen out of the water before they could put it back in the lagoon. So that was another innovation that they've been working on to really enhance dredging techniques for environmental dredging, which makes it better than just muck dredging in general, for sure. Yeah, if it stopped coming in. I think the argument is always that, well, why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars on muck removal when we're not preventing it from getting in the first place? So that's another, source tracking and trying to make sure that they're also dealing with the sources is an important part of it too, instead of just.
The idea of the grass growing in the muck is kind of counterproductive if you think about it, because every plant has an environment that they grow in, and the grass basically likes a sandy bottom, and they just won't grow in the muck. Get rid of it. But I have a question for you too, if I may.
Sure.
I've been away for a little while, but if we work on getting the pollution out of the Indian River, unless we address the number one problem, we're just running uphill. And I question you, it's a tough problem, and that's septic tanks. And what is happening on septic tanks?
Okay, so in Brevard, again, they've got all the money. So Brevard County, with that half-cent sales tax, has more money than anybody now. Anybody, like more than the state, more than NEP going into the lagoon. So they've done all the great work again. So we had the chance to work with them and with my colleague Claudia Listapad at Applied Ecology, who also got her PhD from UCF. Yay, go Knights! On prioritizing, right? So we've got 90,000 we're dealing with in Brevard. Where are they and how close are they to the lagoon, and how do we prioritize which ones need to get connected? And then how do we get those people to connect? So it's happening. So we've got our map, we've got our ordinance now, we've got our overlay. So we know which areas of the lagoon have the septic tanks that are most likely contaminating the most, and a priority plan for how to address getting those people to either connect to a sanitary sewer line or go to high efficiency septic.
Is there any plan on how to do that?
Yeah, give them money.
I used to live about 5 miles from the lagoon house, and we were on septic tank, and there is just nothing to connect to out there. I have looked at high efficiency septic systems and that, but man, how are we going to convince people to put them on?
They're super expensive. Well, we're going to give them the money. I mean, Brevard County is paying for it. Yeah. So they're also, and we kind of fought this a little bit at first, laying new septic lines. So, our position was, well, you can lay new septic lines to existing communities, but we're not paying with our soil, pollution prevention money to lay new septic lines to new undeveloped areas of the county, because that's counterproductive. So they are. So they're putting in a line down. I don't know if you're familiar with Riverside Drive in Cocoa. It's right on the lagoon. Those houses are all on septic tanks. They're putting down pressure line and sanitary sewer line there, which is a hard place to do it because it's low. So it's not gravity. You've got to use pressure. It's super expensive. It's an engineering nightmare because it's coquina. So they're doing it. It's just expensive, and you have to prioritize and just keep. How do you eat an elephant? You just start somewhere.
Just a footnote on that issue is this morning at City Hall, we learned that Winter Park, where we are right now, 20% of Winter Park is on septic, which is a real shocker. So it's really a statewide issue, and it's a little bit under the radar, but, this would be a great group for everyone to understand. You can't sit here and criticize Brevard County because it is a bigger problem than we know.
Oh yeah, no, it's all over. It's all over everywhere. And it's the state, right? I mean, this Department of Health has permitted septic tanks where they should never have been. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, in regard to the septic conversions, and she said money in a nutshell, but the Citizens Oversight Committee, I actually serve on that board, and it has been one of our main missions to prioritize this past year, really getting the marketing information out to those homeowners to know that the grant is there. And we were even able to go back and retro some families that had already invested the money to connect to laterals and retro them the grant money back because they had invested, and it was a huge process. But we've prioritized that, and it's been difficult, but again, once you show them that money and you show that you're willing to invest and you explain the property value that is going to increase for this connection already being there for resale, people are very eager to do it. And there is a really deep understanding in the lagoon area. Most people do care. So once they get that concern coupled with that, again, going back to Lisa's really important money part, and they have identified, and just this year alone, I don't want to misquote, but I know one neighborhood connected 114 homes that signed on to that project through the grant incentive, and that was just one larger example that I remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's definitely it's happening. Eat an elephant, little by little, but the more people understand that the help is there, they're really eager to take advantage of the opportunity.
Thank you, Kim, and I want to thank you also for volunteering on that committee. I think, an important way that we were able to get that tax passed in Brevard was a lot of residents, this is going to come as a shock, don't trust government to spend the money the way they're supposed to. So we wrote in that there would be a Citizens Oversight Committee made up of residents representing different stakeholder groups that would make sure, and Kim's on that committee, so thank you, Kim, for being on that committee. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that they have to do, and it's every month they meet for hours, and Is
there any effort or talk about putting a restriction on new construction along the Indian River, both beachside and US 1 side?
like a moratorium on development? Well, around our lunch table every day, we talk about that. Wouldn't it be nice if we can get a moratorium on development? Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Like I said, where I live, there was no way you could ever put a sewer in those places. And yet, the building is just growing at a ferocious rate.
It's ridiculous.
Just pumping and pumping and pumping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got, so our space industry has gone crazy right now. So all the cities, I go to the League of Cities, we're members of the League of Cities, and every month they're all like, we just permitted 1,400 new homes, yay! And I'm like, no, stop it. So they're having these, the mayors were all like, yeah, well, I got Margaritaville right on the lagoon. I'm like, that's not good. It's not good.
Compost toilets, potentially.
Dear Mr. Buffett, did you know? Sorry, I did. Dear Mr. Buffett, did you know your new Margaritaville is going to Manatee Death Central? No, I haven't said. Are you kidding? The manatee haters will kill me.
So,
that'll be the end of that.
I have a question about low impact development, but before that, I just had two things. I really believe in the power of words and the power of shaping the mind. I'm gonna do copywriting and marketing, and so a change Peter's done some of this. Like rather than say kill a horse, they say don't feed a fed horse. Rather than saying don't beat a dead horse, they say don't feed a fed horse. So one of the shifts I found is how do you eat a moringa tree, one leaf or one bite at a time? Because eating an elephant would be a terrible thing to do. So
Thank you.
it's one of those paradigm shifts that we get entrained into old language patterns that were functional, but there are better alternatives. Second thing was Tom's Shoes is a great example of how we can take even a functionally dead lake, but create an industry to where they give shoes to people without shoes by selling shoes to someone who has the money to buy them. So like if the industry, if we can't create a local solution for it, we can zoom out and say, okay, this isn't just us that has seagrass. Any place that has creatures that live off of seagrass, it's kind of like creating enough connections to where the people who don't have shoes can't buy them for themselves, but if we see the same commonality, you can create an industry or a collective. My question is, tell me about how I can get connected with and who you recommend connecting with or researching in regards to low impact development.
It kind of depends on what you want to know about it. So there's LID and there's green stormwater infrastructure. So I'm not sure which one you want, but low impact development, there's a low impact development center, which is probably a good place to start. There's the US EPA's website. There's the University of Florida, has a green stormwater infrastructure LID part of their engineering and also part of the program for resource efficient communities, FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, just launched a new green stormwater infrastructure website. Did you see that? And the Nature Conservancy has a photo album site, which I'm not going to remember how it goes, but I would just Google the Nature Conservancy green stormwater infrastructure. So green stormwater infrastructure is using the natural terrain more, and LID is more about design and engineering and building. Yeah, hopefully
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for your questions. Sorry to cut you off. I'm gonna stop the questions for now so we can do the breakout session. But maybe you can stick around if anybody wants to ask you some questions during the breakout session. Sure. You can? Okay, awesome. But she's got a long drive back, so we won't keep her all night. Well, thank you so much, Leesa. Can we get a round of applause for her?
Thank you guys. Thanks for the great questions.
Great participation, a lot of brain waves going on, which I really like. Oh, that's another picture at your thing, one of my favorites. Our UCF branch manager and our fleet farmer out there planting mangroves. Anyway, okay. So we've got our breakout session tonight, and this one's actually super important because I want to kind of replicate these ideas that they're doing in the Indian River Lagoon here in Orlando. As you guys know, we're doing the boots on the ground action to plant trees, plant pollinators, save shorelines, and so I need more ideas on where does this work need to happen. So think about your communities, think about places you know in Orlando that are really degraded and need restoration and need a ton of community backing behind this investment. And this kind of conversation is exactly how I'm gonna plan next year's restoration projects. So please think about it together. How can we replicate these ideas to invest in our natural resources, but really think about where and what? So you guys are helping me plan 2023 tonight. So take the next 10, 15 minutes to brainstorm at your tables and put it on the whiteboard, and we'll all present after that. All right, thank you guys so much.
choose something really prominent, very popular, so that it gets a lot of attention, marketing, and then drums a lot more response to hopefully have more participation in the rest of your events. And then the water bodies were Lake Ivanhoe, Lake Conway, Little Econ, Little Kaiva, and Lake Lawn, which is actually, I just learned, a headwater for the Kaiva, or the Econ. Okay, great.
Great ideas. And lake cleanups are actually really popular events for some reason. I wouldn't think so because it's a little messy, but that's great. So Lake Conway, Lake Ivanhoe, Lake Mon, and Little Econ, Little Kaiva. Yes.
Each of those little Kaiva and little Econ both have many different locations and access points that we could.
Totally, that's great. And those are also obviously needy areas, so they could also do some shoreline restorations and different plantings and that too. Who's next? Go ahead. Get on up there.
Before I present this, can I bring up my feelings on two things that we were discussing earlier and ask you a question? Is that okay?
Quickly, we don't have a ton of time, and I want to hear everyone's ideas.
So, like, I remember the sentiment being echoed of, like, getting people to, like, care about the Indian River Lagoon. And I thought, you know, like, you mentioned property value would increase if they did these things, but maybe not everybody wants to sell their home. Like, I think educating them on, like, you know, the value of a healthy ecosystem would be the best approach. And then there was another thing, sorry, it's coming to mind right now. You guys mentioned like creating like a citizen type of group to like manage government's incompetency, it sounded like. Like people should be able to like trust their governments to do things, not like have to do the job for their governments, because that's almost what that sounds like to me. It's like, oh, you know, the government doesn't do it right, so we have the citizens take time out of their busy schedules to like do what the government's supposed to be doing. But my question was regarding the septic tank problem and the waste going into the river lagoon. Is that only from homes that are on the lagoon, or is that like homes that are not even necessarily on the water?
Yes, I got you.
So what we found was that nitrate in particular is a very soluble form of nitrogen, can go 150 yards. So it doesn't have to be right on the lagoon at all. It could be 150 yards from a canal that goes to the lagoon. So the overlay, when I described an overlay, I'm talking about a map, right? So we created a model that pretty much spatially put an overlay on a map of, you know, where, really contingent on topography, soil type, depth of groundwater, different variables that were in the model, you know, where these houses are contributing the most nitrate to water bodies that are emptying into the lagoon. So no, it does not have to be right on the lagoon at all. It could be 5 miles inland, quite frankly. Yep, right.
Thank you. Has anybody? Yeah, please. I would love for you to present on half of that. Here, you can just take this.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Danina. So we talked a little bit about this idea that I saw in another country, in Tokyo, Japan, actually. It's called the Persona Group Building, and basically, it's an office building, a square office building about maybe 10 or 15 stories high, and the whole side walls are just like living green wall, all the way up.
Those are super cool.
Yeah. Have you heard of those before? Oh.
No, but I saw them in Singapore.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Cool. Well, I just thought it was a good like concept that could be brought to the U.S. maybe somewhere.
It would be, especially in a rainy state like Florida.
Yeah.
Like plenty of water now.
Right. Exactly. And this is actually like an indoor urban farm. They have like a whole room, indoor room. It's like a wheat field. Oh, sorry. It's an indoor farm, this building, the Persona building, and it's they have a whole room that's like this circular wheat field, all indoors. and hydroponics on different floors. And it's an office building, like a corporate office building, but it's an urban farm, like indoor urban farm. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, all great ideas, and I'm definitely seeing that come up more in communities too, so we need to get on that. Who would like to present on behalf of this lovely table?
Lovely, Anita. Thank you. Hello. Hi. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We discussed a couple of different things. We, I guess, had an emphasis on like government involvement and like a lot of kind of like accountability for developers and thank you. Other people that basically are benefiting from from the goods of all of these environments, and then they just kind of like exploit it and then leave us with the problems. But we thought of like the Conway chain of lakes, the Kewanee, soggy grass areas in the Ivanhoe lakes. So like just all of those places. And basically a way to clean those up with measures from City Hall, enrichment of biodiversity, so that like the keystone species are supported and that there's like more long-term development of like actual natural restoration of animals and plants. And then cypress plantings, which is like a really good point because we had taken those out and then allowed for invasive species. Bioremediation with oysters and other species that would help to also plug out that muck, like oysters and, et cetera. And like symbiosis. And then I guess I forgot to mention, but in Peru, where I'm from, Lake Titicaca was actually cleaned up by nanotechnology with scientist Morikawa. So I'm not really sure if he was looking for, like to sell that technology or how, but I mean, they cleaned up like that lake, which is like one of the hugest water bodies ever. With like the nanotechnology. So it's just like we have all these tools already available to us. It's just like we're not paying for it. So it's like, okay, where is this money going to come from? So, again, we just go back to, wait, where is he? What did you say? Like he was like a spot to bioremediate City Hall. It's like, well, yeah, in a way, because we're paying taxes. So we're doing all this, and we expect to have a beautiful place to live in. So they should do it.
That's so true. Yeah. Cheers to that. Snaps all around. Great ideas, everybody. This is really, really important because, you guys come up with the projects that we do as an organization. And so we got some great ideas and some great locations today. I really like the idea of cypress plantings. It's really almost very illegal to cut down a cypress tree. So if we planted all around a water body in need, then they'll never want to build around there. Lake Apopka is a big one that I've been eyeing for a while, and they need a lot of help. You can see it on Google Maps how disgustingly green it is, and we're working with the Parks and Recreation Services over there to plan a big reforestation project on the northeast end or something like that. So hopefully that goes through this year, but a lot of restrictions when you work through government, but we're going to make it happen. And thanks to the support and the volunteer work from all you guys, it's really obvious that there's a need for that, and so they're gonna work with us. So thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your ideas and sharing your energy. This has been really amazing and fulfilling for me. I also want to invite you to some of our upcoming events that we have this month. This is happening. Oh, I went out of order, but it's okay. This is happening this Saturday at our Harvest Festival. It's a little workshop during our Harvest Festival, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be a nutritional workshop and herbal remedy workshop. So we're having a nutritionist come in and talk about how to make a balanced and affordable diet and all the vitamins that we are normally lacking in American diets in the United States. So it's going to be a really beautiful conversation. That's going to transition to a vitamin making workshop where I'm going to have a bunch of loose leaf herbs and remedies, and you can make your own vitamins. And I'm going to have a list of all of the different properties, and it's going to be a lot of fun, DIY. And I've never done it before, so I'm going to be super new at it with everybody else, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And then that is going to be taking place during the Harvest Festival at Lake Lorna Dune Park. There's going to be local food, music, games, crafts. It's going to be a really good time. So please come out if you're available. It's a really beautiful place for the community to get together, and we're excited to make this an annual event. So come on out for that. And then we have a pollinator planting at Orange County Animal Services, which I am so stoked about. They said that they're going to take all of the adoption photos for the dogs in this pollinator garden. So it's right? It's really special, and we're going to be doing it right in the front next to the entrance and just really beautify that space and also make it, a native landscape for the pollinator insects as well. And then this was supposed to happen this month, but we had to postpone due to flooding because of Ian. So we're going to be doing a shoreline restoration project on November 19th at Overlook Park, which is Lake Jessup. This is actually the last one we did there, so it's a lot of fun, a really beautiful shoreline. It's not super messy, so definitely come out to that if you're able to. And if you want to register for any of our events and sign up, you can just use this QR code right here, or you can just use the one in the back. We would love to have you guys come out. It's a ton of fun. It's a great place to be with each other and give back to the community. Does anybody have any? We actually have to be out of here, so I'm so sorry, but I think we all shared plenty. But please still keep this conversation going as you go out. This place closes at 9, but we have to be out of here -5 minutes. But thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot to say so. Word, everybody vote. Yes, if you didn't vote yet, please, you must vote. It is essential. Numbers are bad. Early voting has started a while ago, and there's environmental voter guides online, so please use those. And thank you to our hosts, and thank you guys all so much for coming. I hope you have a beautiful evening. Yes, it's online. Katie made a great one. Go to Ideas for Us Global. Yes, go talk to her about it. Thank you guys.